gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for February 2nd, 2022. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, okay, campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties because it's cold out there today. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa. Jan, how are you feeling?
I am feeling great. Because groundhogs are still a thing. They're still
doing their thing.
An industry for old men to wake up in the morning, slip on some fancy leather gloves, put on a top hat, and then lift a groundhog up in the air and let it determine our future.
Right.
You know, the country's doing great still.
But before the groundhog, the men with the leather gloves and the top hat, they just had to be serial killers, right? That was the only opportunity for them. So now we've given them something to do. Serial killing is it's dipped a little bit, but it's dipped a bit. But yeah, now they're just telling us how long winter's going to be. Do you think they look at any meteorological data before they decide what the groundhog's going to say?
No, absolutely not.
I love that. That's what I was hoping you would say.
Yeah,
I'm like, just fucking fire from the hip. If we're going to do this, fire from the hip. Just go for it.
Like, what if they're just looking in a different direction? Or what if it's a little overcast that day and you can't quite see a shadow? Is that really determinate? Is it just cloud coverage?
I mean, listen, I am no meteorologist, but I would assume a lot of it does have to do with clouds, looking up at the sky and doing a cloud check. And saying,
cloud check, everyone.
Yeah, everyone do a cloud check real quick for me. That Groundhog's Day movie, very good. Very good.
Fantastic.
When's the last time you saw it?
Maybe 2 years ago, and then I got sad thinking about it some more. I'm like, oh man, there's so many Groundhog Day-esque movies that have come out in the past couple of years. Even I like that Andy Samberg one. That one was
a very good one. Not Spring Break, not Spring Breakers. That's a different movie. It's Palo Alto. I can't remember what it's called. Someone's gonna help us out.
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs. There we go. Yes, there we go. That's very, very good. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah.
That one explores even more of the sad concepts of just being stuck in there and having to accept it. So,
oh man, J.K. Simmons in that movie, Jesus Christ,
that's truly awesome stuff. Fantastic. Oh, let's get into the mess, everybody. But before we do, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you're watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with... Got a handful of original reporting to do here today. Let's start here with the Coalition has canceled its smaller non-Gears project. So I have previously reported that the Coalition, to get up to speed with the Unreal Engine 5 update, was planning to take on a smaller non-Gears project before moving on to Gears 6. What would be Gears 6? That game was in the works. It was they were working on it, but they also have been doing other stuff alongside that, including I think most prominently that. In addition to their support work on stuff like Halo Infinite, that Matrix demo that they worked on with Epic. Now, that was not the smaller project. That was a separate thing. But it does seem like they feel like, well, we are up to speed because we worked on that. And so they have canceled that smaller project as well as another project. So there's been 2 games canceled there. This was all reflected in the layoffs that happened at Microsoft, which did hit the Coalition a little bit. But the studio is now going to move on fully to Gear 6. I say now. It has likely moved on to Gear 6 in full over the course of the last year. But I definitely that will be their next game is Gear 6. So no longer going to be making that smaller game. This continues to be the fallout of what's happening over there at Microsoft Gaming and with the layoffs. But this is also not too surprising. The Coalition making a Gears game, that was what it was always supposed to do, right?
Yeah, totally. This sounds like a little bit of a nicer game cancellation story than we've heard over the past couple days and weeks, where it's like, all right, well, the team seems prepared as is after that Matrix demo, so let's just go ahead and move on and properly refocus our time. Gears 6 sounds insane. To think that we've had, well, there's more than 6 because of some of the offshoot ones, Gears Tactics. How can we forget Gears Pop, Jeff?
Yes, Gears Pop. I mean, I thought you were going to say Gears Judgment, and how dare I think that before Gears Pop?
Yeah, in terms of the side games, it's Gears Tactics, Gears Pop, then Gears Judgment.
That's right. Exactly. That's the tier list right there.
I
mean, I think that we have no idea necessarily what this means for people that were working on those smaller projects. So likely, I mean, we do know some of them were laid off, but probably part of that team also went on to work on Gear 6, like get absorbed into those bigger teams. But yeah, like this does feel like them reassessing their priorities and be like, you are now already our Unreal Engine 5 experts. You know more than probably just about anyone outside of Epic. So are we really going to spend a year not working on Gear 6 in full when we could just get everyone focused on that? It seems like no. The answer is no, and that makes some sense to that. I still don't know when to expect Gear 6. It still feels like it's very far away. But it's probably not a full 5-6 years away. It's probably will come in the next 3 years, which is to say maybe still on this generation of consoles, which is a weird thing to think that we're already, but we are. I mean, if you start a game today, I know Jason Schreier pointed this out, but it's like, yeah, if you start a game today and like you scope it out now, you need to already be looking beyond what is the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S. Know for sure, but likely you will have to consider a different hardware at that point, which is weird. Okay. Other story here. These are small tidbits about Wolverine that I've been hearing from someone that was I know has been very familiar with the studio for a very long time. Hard R is what they're going for. It's one of the concepts I've heard, which I think is the right move for Wolverine. I think an M-rated Wolverine game can work. An M-rated superhero game could work. This is probably the right character. I think one of the cool things about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was, hey, the lightsabers slice the droids in half, and then the bad part was when you go up against stormtroopers, it doesn't do that. Now, I'm mostly okay with that. I think with Wolverine, though, you put us into an environment where it's like it's going to be those claws are going to work as claws. Yeah. I'm down. I know you are. You're a Cyclops guy, so you're going to have your issues with Wolverine. But that's probably the right move for our boy, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, whether I like it or not, Wolverine is the poster child for the X-Men. And if this is opening the gates towards more X-Men content in the future, whether it's games or movies, maybe more games, this is what you have to do with Wolverine. I mean, look at a movie like Logan, and like Logan kind of just went all the way and like,
yes,
no, we gotta take this grittier, edgier, violent look. And it's the thing is with Logan and Wolverine, it was like an intentional use of the violence rather than just violence for violence sake.
Yes.
So let me cut these dudes in half.
Exactly. Give me 1 million dudes and I will cut them in half.
Yes.
Also, I just it would be satisfying just to go up against a big Sentinel and just watch it like tear that stuff apart. But I want to be able to like, if you're going to put dudes in front of me, the claws should work the exact same way. In fact, they should be more effective. And I think that's the whole idea. Now, a few other things here. They will avoid to have any sort of links or anything that sort of evokes the Fox movies. This thing's going to stand on its own. It likely, I was trying to nail down the setting. I've heard maybe it at least will start before he joins the X-Men, which also makes sense to Wolverine game. Maybe you don't want to put it in a situation where like, well, where is Cyclops? It's like, well, this is before he even knew any of those people. But I don't know that for sure. That just sounds like that's how it's going to work. Maybe the surprising thing for me is that I've heard 2 different dates. And, maybe let's kind of combine them here. I've heard as early as fall 2024, which would be wild. So this is Insomniac. They're putting out Spider-Man 2 this fall. And then just to follow that up with Wolverine in fall 2024. Now, I've also heard internally they're still very much talking about 2025. So let's not be very surprised if that's, of course, what happens. But, man, if anyone could pull off Insomniac, or if anyone could pull off releasing 2 major AAA massive games, like marquee games for a platform, back-to-back years, it is Insomniac. Not to put extra pressure on them, but yeah, I think most people were expecting it in 2025. So if that's what happens, I think that's totally fine. What were you thinking in terms of like release dates? Spider-Man 2 this year, and then Wolverine's coming in the future. I was just like, yeah, it's some nebulous date. I don't know.
I was thinking some nebulous date. I wouldn't have thought as soon as 2024. Now that news excites me, but again, Insomniac is a studio I definitely trust with this. And I don't want to apply any additional pressure either. So take your time, y'all.
Yeah,
take your time. It's okay.
Time. Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
like he's got a healing factor. He can heal up.
You don't
from whatever. Insomniac, y'all. Just take your time. Siegfried in the Giant Bomb chat mentions, do you think there's at all a possibility of Wolverine popping up in Spider-Man 2?
I think the post-credit scene almost certainly will have something like that. Yeah, I mean, you want to like link these things together in some way, even if it's not like promising that Spider-Man will show up in Wolverine or anything. You show evidence that Logan was visiting a bar in New York, but the time frames that might not match up. Maybe you just show like Wolverine wrote his number on a bathroom like 30 years ago in New York, and it's like, oh, that's cool. Something like that. So
who is developing the Black Panther Amy Hennig game?
Where is Amy Hennig now? I don't remember. So Black Panther plus Captain America in World War II. And where did she go? I can't remember where she's at. Skydance. That's right.
Skydance. Okay.
Right. Skydance is like increasing their investment in games. EA is doing the other Black Panther game, and that's at a new studio. And then Iron Man is at Motive. So we're there we go, figuring it out little by little. But why'd you ask?
I just remember people teasing like Wolverine popping up in like a Captain America movie by like showing. I think it was people took the claw marks on Captain America's shield and thought it was like, is Wolverine gonna be in Civil War? But really, it was just T'Challa.
Yes.
Not disappointed by that, but you know, my nerd like had a little,
sure.
got too excited.
Right. I mean, that's like when you grow up on those kinds of arguments or conversations. You kind of can't stuff it back down. It just pops out sometimes. We'll ask
Danny DeVito as Wolverine, please.
Yes, God, yes, please. The last little tidbit here. It probably won't be full open world. I think, you kind of try to like, well, Spider-Man was. They probably won't. I mean, first of all, Spider-Man's got a completely different traversal than what Wolverine would have. What they're probably going to end up doing is something closer to like open sections of a world,
sure.
Maybe similar to other modern major Sony games.
I can't imagine little Wolverine just huffing and puffing just with his claws.
All covered in the hand sanitizer. Yeah, absolutely. Puppy's upset. I don't think, Chad, can you guys even hear Scout? Because I have the voice, the sound thing on, so everyone say hi to Scout. You guys can't hear Scout? Scout's being a good girl. Don't worry, everybody. EA has reportedly canceled a single-player game codenamed Titanfall Legends. Let's talk about the story, and then let's get into it about what Titanfall Legends was. We have details about that as well. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. Electronic Arts has reportedly canceled a new single-player game set in the Titanfall/Apex Legends universe. According to Bloomberg, the game was in development at EA Studio Respawn Entertainment, where a team of about 50 people had been working on it. Codenamed Titanfall Legends, the project was reportedly being led by creative director Mohamed Alavi until he left the company in January 2022. Respawn announced in July 2021 that it was developing a new single-player adventure game set in a unique universe, which Alavi was attached to. Olavi was a senior designer on the Titanfall series and the narrative design director on Apex Legends during an 11-year spell at Respawn. Prior to that, he spent 7 years at Infinity Ward, where he designed iconic Call of Duty missions, including No Russian and All Gillied Up. So I remember hearing for a long time that Mohamed Alavi was leading a smaller team, working on a stylized shooter with a lot of cool mobility stuff. And it was not Titanfall 3, and it was not. Titanfall Legends was not Titanfall 3. It is a different thing, because Titanfall 3, I think in most people's minds, was always going to be a new standalone game with a single-player campaign and a multiplayer, and they just could never do that again after Apex Legends changed the calculus on all those things. It was going to be trying to figure out a way to get Titanfall Legends into or a Titanfall sort of feeling thing inside of Apex Legends. Now, the details that I have are pretty expansive for like what all this meant. But let's start here, where like in 2 weeks from now, Apex Legends is going to be getting Team Deathmatch, and that was always part of a plan to turn Apex Legends into this platform where you could get all kinds of different shooter experiences from this expanded Apex Legends Titanfall world. And then Titanfall Legends was always supposed to slot in as part of that. So it was going to be like, oh, you get Titanfall Legends, and that will be like the single player campaign inside of this platform. In the same way that Call of Duty works, where you get Modern Warfare 2, and then Warzone is right there as well. Legends would show up in the game. Let's kind of talk about details about the game. The big idea was like, okay, so we are going to bring Titans back, and we'll talk about what that means. They were going to have the Legends show up and give you special powers throughout the game, so they could tie it to Apex Legends in a really strong way. And I think even there was like more people have played Apex Legends than have ever even heard of Titanfall. So we are really going to lean into that. They wanted to make the game more active, where you use your abilities more often. They were also thinking about the strapline I heard was, we want to make John Wick meets Tony Hawk. And it's like, okay, that'd be really cool. They also were super inspired by Doom Eternal, which is like that push forward combat where it's like just be aggressive, always getting stuff. The thinking was, when they designed Titanfall 2, they were like, we're running off the walls. Every kill is like this most stylistic thing ever. And then they would watch most people play Titanfall 2, and they would play it like Call of Duty, where your boots on the ground, you're firing. And that was always a frustration for them, but it was also a thing where they were looking at that and they're like, this is our fault. We didn't create a reward incentive for people to jump into the game and take advantage of those things. They were able to play it like Call of Duty, and so they could just play it like Call of Duty. So the idea was to kind of flip that on its head. Now, the game was going to bring back BT, which is the thing that kind of makes me real sad. Titanfall 2, of course, is the story of this grunt soldier who takes over the pilot mantle from this pilot that just died, and you slowly become a pilot alongside BT, this really special Titan. In the Titanfall Legends, you would discover that Rampart, one of the characters from Apex Legends, has discovered the chassis of BT, brought BT back to life, and that BT was this really, really special Titan now that interacted with a MacGuffin in the story, the thing called the Lost Ark, that is this power source, and because it interacted with it, it's the one thing in the universe that can track down all these parts, and whoever gets all these parts would then become super powerful in the galaxy, all that stuff. Basically, video game things. Players would play as Blisk, one of the main characters from Apex Legends as well, and then you would navigate the world with BT, build and upgrade BT in Rampart's shop, and then fight as and alongside BT. It sounded pretty cool. And then, as I said, those Legends would come along. You would have like Loba or Valkyrie maybe would have their ship, and they would help you transport you from place to place. The point is, again, to connect players with Apex, with familiar characters, and then you can use all those characters to upgrade the Titan. It sounded very, very neat. We'll kind of talk about why this didn't happen, but boy, that sounded pretty cool. What do you think, Jan? Do people not like giant robots? Because I can't speak for everyone, Grubb, but I love giant robots. Yeah, I think they knew that it would be very cool to bring back Titans in some way. And it's like, well, I mean, I hope they could still figure out a way to maybe even just put Titans into Apex Legends. But in terms of creating a Titanfall gameplay single player experience, I think they just didn't know what to do. Especially when, I mean, the story says it, when Muhammad Alavi left, I think it was doomed. Because a lot of I've looked into this, the Apex Legends community has really looked into this. If you go look at the makeup of Respawn these days, it seems like a lot of the key players that founded that studio have left, like the vast majority. Like they probably got bought by EA and they got their money, and now they've gone out to start a bunch of other studios. At least I know we know about the one that was started by John. I can't remember their names, but there's one major studio that's probably started, and that's probably begun attracting talent. And the other ones have left. Like, we don't know what Muhammad Alavi's doing, but I assume he's probably not just sitting around. So like I think a lot of the people that would be there that could sort of spearhead this, at least on paper, at least on LinkedIn, it looks like well that might be difficult. And then on top of that, you just have Apex Legends being this thing that is the big money maker. and you don't want to mess with that. So how do you put out a Titanfall 3 standalone? Well, you just can't, because it can't, anything that would have a multiplayer in it would be a distraction, and a single player only game is not worth the money. So you got to put a single player experience into Apex Legends, and now you're looking at it like, okay, well, yeah, we could do that, and now today, as we're finding, Apex Legends is, trending downward a little bit. Can you do that today? Well, you can, but will it make its money back? And it just seems like that's the big question there.
Yeah, it's really hard to, I see their thinking on paper. But just looking at all the other details about what this could have been, it seems absolutely great. Man, it's a big bummer, but I understand the thinking financially and time-wise that you don't want to mess up. You don't want to mess up your breadwinner here. But at the same time, since Apex, I don't want to say that it is trending downward, but where it may not be as popular as it was, I just don't see a single player mode making people run back to it, other than the folks that were super duper into Titanfall 1 and 2. But then even then, are you really going to pull people away from like Call of Duty? Especially if they're going to try and change the DNA to play less like a Call of Duty. I don't know. And especially if it's primarily a single player effort versus any type of multiplayer stuff, because they don't want to interfere with Apex. I don't know. Maybe have like a time trial speedrunning part, like a Neon White. Yeah, almost.
God, that'd be cool.
Oh man, just make Neon White, but with Titanfall.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they had that tutorial section in Titanfall 2 that was like kind of like that concept, and people got really into speedrunning that. Absolutely. So it's like, okay, we can look at Respawn from the outside and try to figure out what's going on there. That's fine. But then it's like, okay, then what is next? They are still working on that Star Wars shooter. And that seems to be, if you look at like what EA is working on overall, it is mostly licensed stuff. That's where they feel comfortable spending their money. All the sports games are obviously licensed, Star Wars and Marvel, like, and even like even Motive, right? Just got done working on a Dead Space remake, did really well. Their next game, like right up next, is not necessarily Dead Space 2. We know it's Iron Man. They've announced that. So it's like they're going right from a big thing that EA owns into a licensed game, because they think a licensed game has a better chance of getting to that 10 million plus that they want to get to with their games. Now, that could change if Dead Space is just this massive hit, which it seems like it's on its way to, it's on the path to doing that. But that overall, the EA machine is pushing the studios towards these licensed things. Now, obviously, you have BioWare and The Sims out on their own, and Skate is happening. But Skate is like this experiment with UGC. Like they're kind of like can we make this work? There are obviously, then they have their partner games, Wild Hearts from either, was it Koei? Yeah, it's Koei Tecmo, right? Yep. So there are exceptions to the rule, but overall, when it's the big bets, they are moving towards licensed stuff. So if a Titanfall 3 happens, like let's just get down to that, right? That's what people want to know. Can a Titanfall 3 ever happen? It'll be a very long time from now. It seems like today the chances, like if the chances were 5% that we would get a Titanfall Legends, because it was pretty low once Mohammed left. If the chances were 5% a week ago, now it seems much closer to basically 0% that we're going to get a Titanfall game that people want when they say Titanfall. So it's kind of grim if you're a fan of that series. I'm making my peace with it. I'm just going to keep Titanfall 2 in that really special place and kind of say goodbye to it going forward.
Yeah, and Yulia mentions something interesting. It's hard to justify Titanfall 3 given that nobody bought Titanfall 2 until it was $5. Yes. I'm also part of that problem. I didn't play Titanfall 2 until it wound up being massively discounted. And then it just wound up being like one of those cult games that he just got super interested in. But it's part of the problem is that because it was reduced to $5, that means the studio doesn't see the most value in it. Okay, here's my pitch, Grubb. Here's my pitch. Some game designer, studio, take this, please. Take it. You don't have to pay me. Make Neon White, but with giant robots, a campaign, but add knee sliding like Vanquished.
Yes. God, you got it. You got it, Jan. That's what I want. That's the dream right there.
Make Doom Eternal 3. I know they haven't made 2. Doom Eternal -3 and add giant hell robots to it.
Yes, definitely. I would love. I mean, because that was like when they were making this game, Titanfall Legends. We're a pretty small team. Let's like focus on the pilot stuff. And it's like we're gonna let the Titan stuff stay to the side because that's pretty good for now. But we'll come up with some other ideas. But their idea for that was always like we're gonna be like a giant like Hercules or like Hulk with a sword. And I'm like, oh man, that sounds cool.
Okay.
Let's build on that, definitely. There is one other project in the works over at Respawn, other than like there's the Star Wars Tactics game that they're working with a partner or whatever. There's one other non-Star Wars thing that is still in development or in research period from Steve Fukuda, who was the game director on Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2, but he didn't work on Apex Legends or Titanfall Legends at all. And it's hard to say what that is, but apparently that's not been shuttered, so maybe something still happens there. But that's a smaller thing as well. But it's been in the works since Titanfall 2 came out, so maybe that's the kind of thing that can pop up and be Respawn's sort of fallback if the Star Wars stuff goes south.
It's a long time in development, but games do take forever.
Yes, absolutely.
Folks need to know.
That's Respawn's methodology is spend half the development time in research and development and coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas, and then the second half turning the best ideas of those into a game. And it's like I think they're probably still in that sort of flow of things. Vince Zampella, meanwhile, has been promoted over at EA. They really like what Respawn has done. Obviously, Apex Legends has been their bread. I mean, that's the thing with Apex Legends. It was you look at Battlefield 2042 coming along. Battlefield 2042 was supposed to be this big hit for them, and when it wasn't, what did they do? They just like, don't worry, Apex Legends is making money, and investors were actually pretty happy with that answer. And said, man, if they didn't have Respawn, EA would be in big trouble. But they did, and so it's like they're really happy with the way Respawn has buoyed EA overall, given Vince Zampella a lot of leeway and put him in charge of a lot. But now he's like, I think he is focused overall on like a very big picture thing and isn't working day to day with the Respawn necessarily. Like he's in charge of Battlefield now, and so we're gonna have to. It's gonna take years to see what that turns into. But yeah. All right, let's keep moving here. Sony earnings. This comes from Dom's Playing on Twitter. PlayStation 5 lifetime shipments are now 32.1 million after moving 7.1 million in the holiday quarter. That means that the PlayStation 5 has surpassed Sega Genesis life to date. The company previously said a PlayStation 5 was at 30 million sold through to consumers. So we're at 32.1 million shipped. And that means it's a little bit lagging behind in terms of what's sold through to consumers, but every single one that's shipped sells, so don't worry about that. For context, PS4 was at 37.8 million shipped over the same time frame. Again, that just comes back to the supply constraints and the troubles with the yield on the chip. A lot of things that have been solved, and we'll talk about what that means for their projections going forward in a story coming up. PlayStation Plus members currently total 46.4 million. That's down from 48 million last year. However, monthly active users rose to 112 million in the quarter ending December compared to 111 million last year. PS5 full game software sales declined to 86.5 million from 92.7 million. 62% was digital. That's flat year over year. PlayStation sales in total grew 53% though to 8.8 billion. Operating profit rose 25% to 820 million. Both of the actually, I'm not sure. 820. Yeah, it definitely rose 25%. I'm not sure if that was yen or not. Maybe I might have mixed that up. Both of these are all-time highs, driven by foreign exchange rates changes and growth in all product categories, notably hardware and God of War Ragnarok pumping up software segments. There's a chart here that I want to get to that actually shows just how insane this growth is for Sony. I'll bring this up here. The news asset. Here we go. So this goes back to 2019 Q1, and the blue line there is hardware. This is like the amount of revenue they're making from hardware. You can see it's kind of in this zone. And then Sony does two things. They basically solve their supply constraints and raise the price. And the PS5 hardware line just goes straight up. It just pops straight up here. Let's see, they went from about 200 or 175 billion yen or whatever that is, and then that pops up to 400, almost 450,000 million yen. That's super impressive, and that is why they raised the price, because they knew they could make up a huge amount of that all in one go, and they're probably going to maintain that. They expect to maintain that sort of a pace throughout the rest of this year. Not too surprising that Sony's doing well financially, huh? At least PlayStation.
Yeah, it's not rare to see like a line that steep, but I guess and this is me knocking on wood, it's nice to see a company do well and not lay off people.
Yep, so far, at least as far as we're aware. I think the thinking at Sony PlayStation is we are hitting on all cylinders, and we are delivering, and we want to be delivering more, so we need everybody. Why would we cut now if we're the one side of things that's doing well? Maybe there have been layoffs in other parts of Sony. I'm not aware.
Sure.
But under PlayStation, it seems like they're cooking, and they want to keep cooking. Let's see. Meanwhile, Sony expects PS5 to double PS4's shipment record this quarter. We'll kind of explain what that means. This comes from Andy Robinson at VGC. PS5 shipments reached 12.8 million in the first 3 quarters of Sony's current fiscal year, meaning the company will need to have sold another 5.2 million consoles during the fourth quarter ending on March 31st to reach its previous annual guidance of 18 million units. However, Sony is confident enough in supply and demand that on Thursday, it actually increased its annual PS5 forecast by 1 million units to 19 million. That means it now expects to ship 6.2 million PS5 consoles during the current quarter, which would be more than double PlayStation 4's peak for the same window. So during this quarter, historically, the PS4 only shipped about 3 million ever, and so they're expecting to do 6.2 million PS5s. That is wild. So there are going to be a lot of PlayStation 5s out there. Do you think there's going to be any whiplash from going from being in such short demand to kind of being flush in the marketplace?
Probably. We're gonna. I mean, the problem is we'll see cases like the Nintendo Switch, and that it continues to sell incredibly well in Japan, and all SKUs of the Switch, even from like the Lite to the OLED to the original. That I guess I can see a case for the PS5 just completely taking over the market. The thing that this makes me wonder is how many people that own PS5s currently and will own PS5s from here on out through the rest of the year, do they expect to adopt into PSVR 2?
Yeah.
Because, these are great numbers that we're seeing for Sony. We're going to talk about another game that sold incredibly well. And then just some other decisions that have done well for them. But like, how many of those people that got a PS5, whether for a singular game or that bought into it for the hype factor because it's a new pretty gadget, are going to continue to use their PS5 for something like PSVR 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think that doesn't necessarily have to be the question, but I think Sony's kind of making it the question because that seems to be their major thrust this year in terms of what is coming from PlayStation. We do know Spider-Man 2 is coming in the fall, but they didn't have their big showcase in the fall. They had a state of play, and so we kind of waiting to hear what else is coming. But in the meantime, we do know the PlayStation VR 2 is coming. It's big and it's expensive, and it's supposed to be very, very good technologically. But is the software support there? Well, we'll see. There's a lot of games there at launch. A lot of them are ports, but it's expensive. And so our people who just got a PS5, most people, I think, in their mind, even if they've had one since launch, think, I just got a PS5. I just spent $500 on this thing, and I've played a handful of games. Maybe I played a dozen games on there, but most people are probably like thinking, well, I played God of War Ragnarok on Horizon, and maybe Gran Turismo, a handful of others. And I'm kind of waiting to feel like I am really, I got my money's worth, and I'm like at an equilibrium point in terms of I made an investment in a console, and now that investment's paid off with awesome original experiences. I think people think they're well on their way, but they're not in that same point as they were, I think, when the PSVR 1 came out, where the PS4 had definitely beyond a shadow of doubt proven itself. And I'm not to suggest the PS5 is like lacking in its ability to prove itself, but people were happy with their investment and were feeling like they weren't thinking about the 400 or whatever they spent on PS4 anymore when the PSVR came out. I think people are still thinking about the 500 they spent on the PS5, and that is going to hinder the PSVR 2's chances. I think. I think that's what you're getting at least.
Yeah, I think that's you said it much more eloquently, Grubb. And also, they're planning on raising the prices of PS5s everywhere else other than here. So just like, man, are you guys shooting yourself in the foot? Y'all know what you're doing with this thing? Do you guys want to make a PSVR 2?
Yeah, that was early on. They were like, we will talk about it eventually, maybe not. And then there was maybe a small backlash to that, and they're like, no, we are all in on PSVR 2. It's like, oh, you are? Oh, okay. And now it still feels like that weird, oh, you are? And like they don't even believe it. Because, listen, the hardware seems good. It's Sony. They make good hardware. But I just look at that lineup of games and no
it's
Astro.
Not there.
If there was an Astro, I think this would be a completely different conversation. But I don't see an Astro. I don't see a Half-Life Alyx. You're right. It's just not there.
And I would love to be surprised. I want to be surprised. But I feel like this is one of those things where folks... Maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but like have built up expectations that there is some killer app that isn't quite ready for release just yet, but maybe 3-4 months after PSVR 2's release, it'll pop out. Like we'll have a new Astros. Maybe there's like a God of War VR where you have the blades of chaos, the chaos blades or whatever the hell they're called in each hand, and you're just moving them around or whatever. That's probably not it. That's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, well, listen, the next gen Move controller's got to do something.
What are all these people playing?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, listen, the Horizon's their big thing, right? For PSVR 2. Like that's the Horizon Call of the Mountain.
Yeah. No, I was just saying for PS5s in general. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, okay, you got your God of War, your Horizon, your Ratchet. Do you just go to Call of Duty now or like Apex?
I mean, I hope that third-party support would be enough for most people. I think it probably is. I mean, I'm sure people are going to get a little bit antsy waiting for Spider-Man, but coming off God of War Ragnarok, I imagine the people that are thinking in terms of exclusives are probably, it'll be a tough wait. But I don't think Sony's going to make people wait too long to actually give them, here's other things that are happening beyond PSVR 2.
Final Fantasy 16, right?
That's right. Final Fantasy 16, exactly. So like they have stuff coming, and I don't think as easy as it is to play a game like God of War Ragnarok and finish it and be like, okay, that took people 6 years or 5 years of their life to make that. It took me a couple weekends to beat it. I'm moving on. What's next? And how demoralizing that might be to developers who spent years of their life making something. I think most gamers are like, that game felt like it took years to make, and I'm happy to be happy with it and not to begin immediately whining for what's next. It seems like where most PlayStation fans are right now, anyhow.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see how the PS5 does in terms of sales. I bet that they are able to keep that momentum going with the PS5 and
100%,
and not and maybe at the detriment of the PSVR 2, where people are making a choice and they're like, I'm just going to keep my money going to PS5s. God of War Ragnarok sales have exceeded 11 million units worldwide. That is a big number. This comes from Mohammed Hassan at DualShockers. The Santa Monica studio team has been has shared the exciting news that God of War Ragnarok has reached 11 million in global sales, marking an increase of roughly 6 million units sold since its debut week. So sold 5 million in its first week, and then another 6 million on top of that since. That's really impressive. Very few games get to 10 million, period, let alone that fast. It's already at 11 million. This seems like one of those games that probably could get to 20 million. And if it does, it's in rare company at that point.
Oh yeah, it's great to see, because I mean, it, like you mentioned, playing God of War Ragnarok, you can tell that this is a game that had the power at the time and the resources behind it. But also feels like a labor of love, and it's nice to see when like a AAA project like that like can deliver on all of those fronts, versus feeling like a cash grab or whatever, or just not or falling flat. So, 11 million, Jesus Christ.
Yes, that's and you know, obviously it helps that it's on PS4 and PS5. But I bet most people bought it on PS5. That seems to be the way these things go. Okay. Sony promotes CFO Hiroki Totoki to president and COO. Excuse me. This comes from James Batchelor at GI Biz. Sony Corporation has made some changes to its top management, with CFO Hiroki Totoki due to be promoted to president at the beginning of the next financial year. Totoki's role is currently Director, Representative Corporate Executive Officer, Executive Deputy President, and Chief Financial Officer. As of April 1st, 2023, he will drop the Executive Deputy President role and take on the position of President and Chief Operating Officer, in addition to his other responsibilities. He takes over from current President Kenichiro Yoshida, who is also Director, Representative Corporate Executive Officer, Chairman, and Chief Executive Officer. Yoshida will retain these other roles after April 1st. The aim of the leadership changes are to further strengthen the Sony Group's management structure. Here's a quote. I am grateful to Kenichiro Yoshida and the board of directors for their trust in newly appointing me to the roles of president and COO, and at the same time feel a great sense of responsibility. The promotion was announced alongside Sony's financial results today, in which it revealed PlayStation generated $9.6 billion during the past quarter. Jim Ryan, meanwhile, remains in charge of Sony Interactive Entertainment as its CEO and president, and of course that handles PlayStation. This mostly just feels like they are trying to move in the directions that they've been moving, where let's focus on PlayStation. That's working. And then meanwhile, we need to reconfigure everything else. But this is kind of also a pretty typical change. Not too newsworthy, but I figured I'd bring it in here. PlayStation 5 beta update 7.0 adds highly anticipated Discord voice chat. This comes from Mirdad Kiat at DualShockers. Sony has now begun rolling out the next big system software update for PlayStation 5, although still in its beta phase. The update includes the much-anticipated Discord voice chat feature and variable refresh rate support for 1440p output. The beta version will only be available for a limited number of users in the US, UK, Canada, Germany, France, and Japan. If you have already signed up for the beta, make sure to check your emails, as Sony is sending out invitations along with the instructions to download the beta build. It's been a long time coming, but here we are. It seems like we'll have a parity between Xbox, PC, and now PlayStation in terms of being able to get on your system and use Discord as the primary way to talk with other gamers, and that is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm so ready to not have to try and convince my friends to, all right, just hook up your phone and plug in your AirPods, and then we can chat there. Oh, you want to hear your game? We'll just put on another set of headphones there. We can just have one set. We can just get one set, Grubb.
Yep, that's the dream.
Oh no, now I need to figure out like my game's media friends and then my in real life friends. Oh no, I can't let my real life friends see the perverse content I make.
Yes, get us all on Discord together. Make the Jan Universe Discord. Let's go.
Oh boy, I'm not ready.
I don't want to make it happen. Yeah, this is cool. I expect the integration here to be pretty smooth. There was that weird period on Xbox where you had to like use your phone to start it, but they've since changed that, where like Discord is basically just another app on your Xbox for the most part. I haven't used it much like on the Xbox, but I think I've used Discord with people who were on the Xbox, and it worked great. Really nice. Cool stuff. Steam's Big Picture Mode finally gets Steam Deck inspired update. This comes from Haley Williams at GameSpot. Steam's Big Picture Mode, introduced back in 2012 for players who pair a PC with a large screen or TV and a controller, has finally received a much needed overhaul based on the Steam Deck's sleek user interface. As reported by Eurogamer, the new Big Picture UI is now live as part of the latest client update after 4 months in open beta testing. The streamlined UI boasts a new home screen with easy access to recently played titles, as well as updates on the other games in your library. The update has also done away with the previous UI's rigid segmentation between library, store, and community categories, instead implementing a new universal search that will encompass all of Steam. This has been a long time coming. I do use Steam Big Picture Mode a lot when I have my PC connected to my TV. I was usually fine with the interface, although it did feel very old after a while. But the Steam Deck's interface is great. Yes, bring me that in more places. That's fantastic.
Please.
Yeah. Any chance you're gonna use this or anything?
Yeah. I could see some use cases of just plugging in like a gaming laptop that you bring over to a friend's house, or like a family gathering of like, hey, let's play Jackbox this way. And it's easier to navigate. The old interface, original interface, for some reason just reminds me of like the PS Vita.
Yeah, there's like some like weird old ideas about what interfaces should look like that were common at that time. In 2012, that was like the time of the Vita, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get those same sensations when I'm using it. There's something about it. It's just like, yeah, I don't know.
Like, I don't hate it.
Yeah, definitely not.
Don't love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like the Steam Deck's interface. So yeah, let's do it. Wild Hearts will have free post-launch content and no microtransactions, it's claimed. EA and Koei Tecmo's monster hunting game Wild Hearts will have no microtransactions and free post-launch content. The game's executive producer, Lewis Harvey, was taking part in a Reddit AMA session when he was asked what players could expect in terms of in-game monetization. All post-launch contents will be free, including new kimono and more, he replied, adding, "We don't have any plans to feature microtransactions. Kimono are the game's large monsters. It is kimono, right? Large monsters which players hunt either alone or with up to 2 other players in co-op. Elsewhere in the AMA, Harvey also stated that players wishing to play the game solo can do so completely offline, and that there is a post-campaign in-game with more powerful kimono, which will be expanded with free content updates. He also said the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions would offer performance modes at 1080p 60 and quality modes at 4K 30. There's some other details in there as well, but I'm surprised by this. I thought this game would be like, okay, yeah, we'll get people in there. It's going to be a Monster Hunter clone. We promise it's going to be good. And then when you're there, here's how we're going to monetize you. The idea that it doesn't have microtransactions makes it feel like, hey, they will just, they're going to just try to sell this game straight up. And maybe this is like a good idea for something that is trying to, come into this space from the side when it's owned by Monster Hunter. They probably should do something that feels like very open and like a good deal for players, right?
Yeah, I almost wonder if them not having microtransactions, and like I agree that's a good thing. Free post-launch content. Yeah, I guess that you have to approach it this way when the space is dominated by Monster Hunter. And Jason was even mentioning that he had very low expectations for Wild Hearts. Maybe this will convince other diehard Monster Hunter folks to give it a try at least, knowing that you just pay the one-time fee to get in and that you'll continue to be supported. I think the thing I worry about is that with free post-launch content like this that isn't supported by microtransactions is how much of that are players going to get? Are people going to devote as much time as they devote to Monster Hunter? Because, Grubb, let me tell you, the diehard Monster Hunter folks are freaks.
Right, and the thing with Monster Hunter, like Monster Hunter doesn't have microtransactions either, as far as I can remember.
Other than the DLC.
Right, it has DLC, yeah.
Like Sunbreak, but like, they really release all that stuff. But I feel like it's because they have all those people in the ecosystem. It does have microtransactions. Okay,
they sell
cosmetic
costumes.
stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. All right,
sure. Actually, Goose Munch brings up a good point. I don't know if Wild Hearts is going to be good, Grubb. Are they going to have cats cooking my food?
That's a really good point. And if it doesn't, like, what is it? What are we even doing here?
I know.
We messed up. I think that the thing with Monster Hunter is it's such a long running series that they have, and they kind of, what they do is they mostly reuse what they've done before, and then they spruce it up with each game. And so they have years and years and years of content kind of baked in that they can draw on. And that's what Monster Hunter fans want. They want the monster to play like the monster that did before, because it's like, I learned all these skills hunting this thing. I want it to be mostly pretty similar, with some new stuff on top. This game is going to have an uphill battle with that stuff, where it's got to start from scratch mostly. I know the studio has done Monster Hunter games before, but I don't think they're drawing on any of that stuff in terms of the content. So yeah, we'll see. And
it's an interesting challenge that they're taking on.
That's right. Everyone, make sure you harass Dan Reichert in chat. Tell him I'm coming for him in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Billy Mitchell photos emerge showing non-original Donkey Kong hardware apparently used for disputed score. Here it is, Jan. This is the big story. From Gavin Lane at Nintendo Life, new evidence has been uncovered that suggests Billy Mitchell did indeed cheat to attain his record-breaking Donkey Kong scores. Now, allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly there. I don't need Billy Mitchell suing my ass. The ones which
I'll fight him, though.
And yes. Oh, yeah. I would totally fight him in an alley. The Donkey Kong scores, the ones which Twin Galaxy removed from its record boards because they were allegedly achieved via emulation rather than original arcade hardware, and for which Bill Mitchell is suing the record-keeping company. As revealed by Carl Jobst on YouTube in a video, apparently Billy Mitchell achieved these scores, at least one of these scores, on a Donkey Kong machine that did not use the original joystick. Instead, it used a red, longer, taller joystick that is likely 8-way instead of 4-way, which makes Donkey Kong much easier. I think one of the big things is, let me bring up this image as well. When you are trying to manipulate, and I've learned about like manipulating games through Punch-Out, when you're trying to manipulate which way the barrels are going, often you have to climb up the ladder and stop and push in a direction.
Right. And
with the 8-way thing, you can keep going up and down the ladder and do it diagonally, and that could still manipulate the barrels. So it gives you a slight advantage, which is why it's considered a legal modification if you were trying to submit a score in Donkey Kong. Now, that's fine. Okay, fine. That sounds bad. He shouldn't do. That sounds like it should invalidate it. The real thing here, though, is he has claimed repeatedly in his lawsuit against Twin Galaxies that he played on completely unmodified hardware in any way. And this would be a modification. That red joystick, which apparently has just been recently discovered because someone reached out to the mortgage broker convention where this happened, which is why this score is called the mortgage broker score. They reached out to them and said, hey, do you have any photos of Billy Mitchell at the event? And they were like, yeah, here's some. And they discovered him standing next to this machine and next to that red joystick. And that, regardless of anything else, this proves that he did not play on unmodified hardware for at least one of his scores. So we're putting him in jail. We got him, everybody. Allegedly.
Allegedly, we got him, folks.
Allegedly, we got him.
That is crazy. What a fall. No, I can say this without saying allegedly. What a fall from grace.
Yes, we could define what grace is in that he has fallen from it here. I feel comfortable doing that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember Grubb just like seeing the name Billy Mitchell plastered everywhere. It's like, he's really great at video games. He holds these records. And just seeing him holding his plaques and his funny ties, and then just seeing all of that crumble, and we just see the real person underneath. And just hawking hot sauce, man.
Hawking hot sauce. It was in King of Kong, the documentary, which everyone should watch if you haven't. It was so frustrating to have Steve Wiebe sit in front of those cameras and show us his journey, and then to have a videotape out of nowhere and no video evidence of Billy Mitchell actually playing the game. Have a videotape just pop out of nowhere and get to a million before Steve Wiebe. And it's like, okay. Billy Mitchell has played Pac-Man, a perfect game of Pac-Man in front of people. He's clearly good at video games. So I think we could just like accept based on that he did this. And then find out later, it seems like he played on an emulator and lied about that because of the way the game renders. People were able to prove he played on an emulator, not original hardware. And then to have this just like without a shadow of a doubt, there it is. That's the machine that you're claiming you did this on. And it's modified. And you said over and over again in your legal filings, it was unmodified. Well, there you go. It's
just take the L, dog. Just take the L.
He won't do that. I can promise you he won't do that. It's so fun. Like that Carl Jobst video, which people should watch. It goes through like some of the other evidence that he submitted with the score. So he has the tape. That's the one thing. That's the big thing. And then there's witness like signed witness affidavits or whatever with the score. And it's like two of them are people who worked at the brokerage, the mortgage broker convention, and they're like, they don't even know Donkey Kong. They have no idea. If someone told you just sign this, is probably what happened. And then the three people are basically his grifter friends that have been with him his entire life. One of which has been repeatedly charged with fraud, and in some cases actually found guilty of fraud. So just a good gang over there, just doing fun things. Okay, let's get moving here. Let's get over to the poll. Yesterday, I asked, should superhero games and movies attempt to use the same actors? 39.9% said yes. 60.1% said no. Jan, what say you?
No, of course not. Lucy brought up a great point yesterday, in that, you're taking work away from like professional voice actors. That this is their whole shebang, you know? Like what? In my hierarchy of Batman voices or Batmen, Kevin Conroy is, if not number one, he's like 1.5.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I mean, he's iconic. Yeah.
And you'd be robbing the world of that. Not saying that someone like Robert Pattinson can't deliver a good performance in a video game, but also, are we still going to have Robert Pattinson as Batman moving forward? I know that DC has their in-canon stuff and then their out-of-canon stuff, but what happens to some of the TV shows? Like you have Kaylee Cuoco as Harley Quinn in the Harley Quinn show, but then you have Margot Robbie as the live-action films. So which one are you going to take for future games featuring Harley Quinn outside of Suicide Squad? And then you have the same stuff with like King Shark and other characters. I don't know. I just don't see it being a good fit moving down the line because sometimes some of those actors are going to want to dip.
Yes, I think it's going to be complicated. And the timelines of these things, as you're talking about, kind of just never match up. But I get the idea of like maybe leapfrogging from one thing to the next and all these things synergize, but that's a perfect world and it's just not going to be perfect. It's going to go wrong very fast. And when one stumble happens, it's going to cascade down. And you're going to get weird situations where you have an actor in there that is either has left the role or has like bad blood with the studio, and maybe you have to like ask the game developer to replace that actor. We're talking worst case scenarios, maybe in situations like that. But I just think it's the juice you get from that squeeze isn't worth it either. It's like it's probably just not worth it. We've had so much evidence that letting games stand on their own. When they're drawing from comics, works just fine. Obviously, Spider-Man, obviously Batman: Arkham City, in Arkham Origins. Maybe that should be the path forward. That's what you should be looking at, and not we need to make the MCU be video games as well, because not even the MCU is doing that.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm quite attached to some. I'm not as attached to all of DC, primarily just Batman and maybe the Titans. But like, who do you get to play Cyborg in the future? If there's ever a Titans game, do you get like the Teen Titans Go cast? Do you get Carrie Payton to play Cyborg, or are you going to get Ray Fisher in hopes of that there will be another Justice League movie with him playing Cyborg moving forward? Also, like, you have all this weird crap with Ezra Miller. Do you really want to put Ezra Miller in a booth as the voice of the Flash when he's abducting people in Hawaii?
Definitely not. I want to stay as far away from Ezra Miller as possible, personally. That's been my goal since starting this show, and so far I've succeeded. So I want to avoid it. I want to continue to avoid it. It's actors are not that like voice actors can't be problematic, and voice actors have caused problems. Sure, but it's just 100%. You are increasing your costs on a game because you're gonna have to pay them more to participate in the game for just less juice. It's just not.
100%. Like, you think it's going to be cheap to get someone like Margot Robbie in a booth or Jason Momoa in a booth for a video game?
There are likeness rights because you have to make the character look like that too, and it's like it's going to be expensive. So I'm sure they'll try to like just shoehorn it into the contract, but it's going to be expensive. It's just and I suppose DC maybe the DC thinks they'll front the cost, so maybe it won't cost the game development. But I bet they pass those costs on and kind of make that that comes out of the game's budget. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. All right, tomorrow's poll is just Billy Mitchell, yes or no. That's what I got. I didn't come up with a poll question, but I think this is pretty good. We will answer this on tomorrow's show when I have Tam on here. I'm sure he'll have a very compelling answer to that question. In the meantime, Jan, thank you so much for taking your time today to talk with me about video games. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. This is the highlight of my Thursdays every morning.
Likewise, man. Thank you all as well. You're the best audience in gaming. Like I said, we will be back with another episode tomorrow. Until then, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.